that resulted in a March 19th, 2020 draft rules and regulations that was posted to the Watermaster website on March 20th. And that was presumably going to be the basis for our public hearing today. However, since March 20th, the ad hoc committee has gotten additional and given additional input to me as general counsel about the rules and regulations. And we've had several opportunities to talk through them and gotten valuable additional input from members of the advisory committee. As a result of that input, a new revised draft of the rules and regulations is going to be posted on the Watermaster website within the next week, so that 30-day period for comment can occur before our May 27th meeting, at which time the intention is to have the public hearing and potentially to adopt the rules and regulations at that time. But I wanted to assure the committee that the input has been robust and from a number of participants in the advisory committee. But to go through the March 19th draft now in the public hearing, I think would be very inefficient, and we would be working with language that has already been suggested for alteration. So my comment is it's being deferred to the May 27th meeting. If anyone does have any comments on the March 19th draft, my response is probably wait for the 1 week for the most revised draft to be circulated on the website, and then it'll be commented upon by the advisory committee. Again, we'll get comments before the May 27th meeting, and then be able to go forward with the public presentation. I think that summarizes where we are, Mr. Chairman, on the rules and regulations. We're very close. It may be that we have an in-person meeting in May, which would be maybe more conducive to public comment anyway. So probably all for the best. Certainly all for the best that we've elicited a lot of comments from the members of the advisory committee, and we've sought to incorporate as much of them as we can. We've also gotten comments from staff, Watermaster staff, and of course the Watermaster engineer. So it's been a very robust process. We're just not ready to, and I think it would be inefficient for us to start public comment on a draft that's been superseded by a couple of more updated drafts that we've been working on. So that's my report. Don't want to stifle any discussion about the rules and regulations, but the voting on the draft that is currently posted on the website will be updated in the next week and the subject of public comment and public hearing at the May meeting. That's my report on rules and regulations.
Thank you, Craig. And this is Rob. The point that was brought up by Derek regarding the payment of our bills in cases of emergencies, can you find a place within the rules and regulations to discuss a procedure for doing that, like the one we followed this time?
Will do.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other discussion by any members of the board of directors? Any other discussion by the public?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes.
This is Tom Bunn, Palmdale Water District. If the board agrees to put over the public hearing, I'm wondering if any further written comments could be posted on the website so the parties could review them before the public hearing.
I think that's a really good idea, Tom. Craig, what are your thoughts?
Yes, we'll endeavor to post whatever written comments we get. I assume You're saying the written comments that will come as a result of the posting of the most recently revised rules and regulations. And
Yes.
that be, yeah. We'll work with staff to post those.
Thank you.
So the board and the public will have the most recent comments.
And speaking with our staff, any problems with doing that for us?
No.
Great, okay. Tom, good recommendation, and we will do our best to comply with that. Any other discussion from any members of the public? Hearing no further discussion at this time, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
This is Derek, I'll make that motion.
Actually,
Second.
yeah, and the motion would be to continue the public hearing till next month.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Derek
Yes, sir.
and second by Dennis.
Yes.
Great. Any discussion? And Craig, is that the appropriate way to do this? Just continue this public hearing till next month, or do you want to just close this public hearing and open a new one next month?
I think either way is fine. I think the way you're proceeding is just fine, Rob.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, you'll have a roll call vote.
I'm sorry, who made that second?
It was second by Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, Director Atkinson,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yeah.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
Director Parrott,
Yes.
motion carried.
And that brings us to item 8B, well application, small pumper qualifying wells, and consideration possible action on resolution number R2009, small pumper qualifying wells application. And I think that's either the Phyllis or Kate show. You're on.
No, that's the Angel Show.
That's the Angel show.
That's
I'm
the
sorry,
Angel
Angel.
If there's any questions, that's the Angel
That's the
Show.
Angel
I
show.
can answer any of it.
And
Basically, we have two applications for small pumper qualifying.
what pages are we looking at? So the public is aware. Like maybe 860.
Actually, page 41.
Yeah. One is in the central Antelope area and one is in the southeast. They're both domestic wells. And the admin staff reviewed and didn't find any problems with them.
Any discussion on item 8B from any of the board of directors? Any discussion from any of the public? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve resolution number R2009 approving the small pumper qualifying well applications?
I move that we approve resolution R20-9.
And that's Adam?
Adam.
Okay. And who will second that motion? Just state your name and that you're seconding it.
Second, Captain McLaren.
Kathy seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we'll take a roll call vote.
Director Atkinson,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
and Director Paris.
Yes. Motion passed unanimously. That'll move us on to item 8C, well applications, new production, new point of extraction replacement well application. what page does that take us to, Betty?
Page 67.
Page 67.
67 or?
Sorry, 66.
And we have 6 applications, 4 are new production applications, 1's a replacement well, and 1 is a new point of extraction. And so Kate or Phyllis can answer any questions if there are any on those.
Good morning, this is Kate. Can you hear me okay?
Any,
Can you speak up, Kate, a little bit?
Yeah, let me adjust my volume.
Kate, that your volume's still very low.
How's that? Is that better?
Not much.
A little.
Adjusted another one. How's that one?
Worse.
Worse. How about this? I'm at 100 for Zoom and 100 for master volume.
Okay, now we can hear you. You might just have to- Yeah.
It's very loud in my headphones.
Go ahead, Kate.
All right, so the resolution R20-10 is on page 66 of the packet. And the wells in question are on Exhibit A, which is on page 68 of the packet. And there's, as Patty mentioned, there's 4 new production, 1 replacement well, and 1 new point of extraction. And the first application is for new production, and that's on page 70 of the packet. And that is a simple one for a single-family household with a little irrigation. And they're asking for 1 acre-feet per year. And they're in the central Antelope Valley sub-area. We have a map of their location, which is on page 71 of the packet. And are there any questions on that one?
It's got a small pumper.
No, they're asking for new production. So they
So they
are not
will be paying replacement.
correct. They will be paying a replacement water assessment.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no questions, the next one is the Estrada, and that's another new production application, and that's on page 88 of the packet. And that's another single-family home with some irrigation. And they're also asking for 1 acre-feet per year, and will pay a replacement water assessment for this new water. And their location, map is on page 89 of the packet, and they're in the southeast sub-area.
So Kate, these wells, both of them will have meters?
Yes. All new production applicants have to meter their wells, even for small
Right.
amounts.
That's correct. Correct. And Patty, you're going to keep track of the production and then billing at the end of the year or whatever?
That's our plan, Adam.
Okay. Well, I just don't want to forget about it. There has to be some way of keeping track of those.
Yes, we do. We're tracking all of our new production applications along with, the new points of extraction. We're doing our best to track everything.
Thank you so much.
All right, Kate again. The third new production application for the Meng family, and actually this one is not for a house, but it's for irrigation of vegetables and flowers. And they're only asking for 1 acre-feet per year and feel that they will not use any more of that than that. And their location of that parcel is on page 114 of the packet. And that well will be metered, and they will be paying a replacement water assessment. Do you have any questions on that? The next one starts on page 129. And this is also for new production, and it's for the Paiute Mutual Water Company. And they were a default party listed in the judgment. And so they want new production for water that they produce from their one well and supply to 13 homes and one small garden. And there in the Central Valley sub-area, kind of edge of it, is shown on the map on page 130 of the packet. And so their past production has been on the order of 9 to 14 acre-feet per year. And in their application, they're requesting up to 21 acre-feet per year. But they confirmed with me that they have no plans to add any additional water connections. And the advisory committee had a question on this one regarding the difference between the current production, which averages around 11 acre-feet per year, and the maximum production they're requesting of 21 acre-feet per year. And they wanted to know if that jump in production was considered in the material injury analysis. And my answer is yes, since they'll be paying replacement water assessments for any water that they use. Are there any questions on this one?
So they do not have any groundwater rights?
They have no groundwater rights. Yep, no groundwater rights. They're on the default list. So they'll be paying a replacement water assessment for all the water that they pump.
So how have they been surviving? What are they getting water the last 5 years?
They've been pumping, and they will owe a replacement water obligation on past production as well.
Okay. That's what I was looking for. So they have not paid anything for the past 5 years or so.
Patty, is that correct? Do you know?
Yeah, we have not billed them. They have not been once we get them as new production, then we can start looking at their past production, and we will do a billing based on the information we receive.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This is Derek. Just a question, kind of as a process procedure. I mean, to make sure there is, as Adam mentioned, the last 5 years they have not paid anything. And is there a process that staff and council and Watermaster and engineer have thought about to cure their past dues prior to approving this? Is that a logic that we've thought about? I guess I'm just wondering before approving this and making sure we just don't have a default in it, that we have some way of making sure their credibility to pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we do in the rules and regulations as updated, you'll see, have the ability of the Watermaster to make sure that all outstanding assessments are paid before approval of a new point of production or a replacement well or a monitoring well. So we absolutely have the authority. The question is whether you want to condition approval on bringing up to date the past payments that Paiute Mutual Water Company owes. They certainly have the authority to do that.
I'd like to get I'd like to get the money before we approve them.
I agree.
I mean, they can bring a check in
This is Adam.
when you're issuing the whatever we're going to issue to them.
Patty, do we know the background of their request right now? Is their current well still working?
Their current well is still working, and I think the feeling has been, and I might be wrong here, but I think the feeling has been that we cannot, it's hard to go after a party that is not a party to the judgment. I mean, they're party to the judgment, but we have no, they have no production. It's kind of hard to bill somebody for for information we don't even know. Once we get the new production application, that's when we actually start getting information on them. We have a number of places out there that we're dealing with. Paiute just happens to be one of the few that are making an effort to be current with the judgment and pay past assessment. It's going to be something I think we have to probably address in rules and regs as far as how do we address parties coming outside of the judgment. Because these people are parties to the judgment. They defaulted, but they're a party, so they don't have to intervene. But it's kind of hard to go after somebody that we don't have any information on.
Just existing well, Patty, this is Adam. Does the existing well have a meter on it?
Adam,
Does the
you speak a
existing...
little bit? It's hard to hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does the existing well have a meter on it, or we don't know?
Yes, they have metered their wells. They have complied with everything that we've asked them to do to date. This is one of the steps that we've asked them to, continue with, is to become a party to the judgment, to be in good standing with the Watermaster by metering their well. And we've got their production application and everything. Yeah, we've got all of their production reports. Once they become... I also kind of want to make a comment just so that everybody does understand. Some of these little bitty tiny mutuals that are out there, it's not that they have the money right now to make huge payments. So when they are paying back assessments, we will probably have to make some type of payment arrangements for these guys because they're little and we're looking at thousands of dollars that they're going to have to owe in arrears. And also we expect them to pay for their annual production now. So that's something I think you need to keep in mind too as to how we're going to deal with back payments on these tiny little mutuals. And anybody. I mean, it's not just the small mutuals that we're going to be dealing with.
So, board, can we consider passing this group is working in good faith with us. Staff has been working very closely with them. And they do want to comply with the judgment, and it would be a showing of good faith on our part to approve this and have staff work with them and Craig to come up with a payment plan for past assessments and move forward with payment in the future. I think we really want to encourage any other mutuals out there to work in good faith with us and not do something fairly draconian to this community. So that would be my thoughts.
Agree. This is Adam. I agree.
This is Dennis. Let the staff just work it out. They've got a good handle on it. Great, thank you. Can we move on to the next application, Kate?
Yes, we can. The next one is the Sunrise Ranch application for the replacement well. And that's on page 163 of the packet. And Sunrise Ranch is an Exhibit 4 party that was allocated 662 acre-feet of ramp down with 0 production rights. It would like to replace an existing well with a new well, and they're in the Central Valley sub-area. And on page 163 and 168 of the packet shows the Sunrise Ranch parcel and new well and existing well locations. And future production for this replacement well is going to come from Sunrise Ranch's ramp down water, which is listed in Table 1 of my letter, which is on 153 of the packet, and also from Gary Van Dam's production rights and ramp down that he got from the split of the Van Dam Family Trust High Desert Dairy production rights. And that's on table 2 of the of my letter and 164 of the packet. And the advisory committee had a concern that kind of came up when they were reviewing this application, and that was about the cumulative effects of multiple transfers kind of approved in one area. And they wanted to know how the Watermaster engineer was handling this. And our process right now is that to approve a transfer, we look at our transfer table, and we look at all of the transfers in that area. And we also look at areas of concern, such as depressed groundwater levels, as identified in the report figures, and we kind of just check that at this point. But I think in the future, more sophisticated methods will be available to us, because we're now currently working on a database that has actual well locations and coordinates and recent pumping history. And we can kind of look at that to get a better handle of where the pumping is occurring. So are there any questions on this application? Nope. All right. So the last one, well application, starts on page 174 of the packet. And that is for a new point of extraction that's submitted by Grimway. And they would like to use a portion of its production rights on a parcel it's leasing from another Exhibit 4 party, which is owned by Calandria Water Company. And Grimway estimates they'll need about 612 acre feet per year at this new point of extraction. And that's about a third of their total production rights. And locations of these parcels are shown on page 175 of the packet. And Grimway's parcels are in green, and the new point of extraction parcel is shown in orange. And there's no new wells associated with this transfer, and that farming has occurred at the new point of extraction parcel in the past at similar production. So I'll head to that one unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Kate on any of the presentation?
The only thing I can have, Kate, is did you do the material review analysis for this last one?
I did in the same manner that I've done the other one, although I didn't write it in the letter because it's a replacement well, and material engineering analysis doesn't really, according to judgment, have to be done for a replacement well. But we thought it warranted a little further investigation.
Even though it's not in the same area as the old one? Or it is?
No.
A portion of it is.
Yeah.
Hey, any further discussion? Adam?
That's good.
Okay.
I was
And
just
Derek,
asking about that.
Derek, I thought I heard you say something. You having further discussion?
No, sir.
Okay. Very good. Any further discussion by anyone? No further discussion. Is there a motion to approve resolution number R2010, new production applications?
I'll make the motion. This is Derek.
Motion made by Derek. Is there a second?
Second by Adam.
Motion second by Adam. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, we'll have a roll call vote.
Director Atkinson,
Yes.
Director Ariki,
Yes.
Director Urosic,
Yes.
Director McLaren,
Yes.
and Director Perez.
Yes. Motion's carried unanimously. That brings us to item 8B, transfer applications. And this is going to be a report by Kate or Philip.
I wanted to point out real quick that on the resolution itself, I made a typo for from Craig and Martha Van Dam to Antelope Valley Country Club. That should read 450 acre feet. I apologize for that.
All right, Kate here. The resolution R20-11 is on page 184 of the packet. And there are 3 transfers up for approval today. And they're listed on Exhibit A, which is on page 185 of the packet. And the first one is the Craig and Martha Van Dam to the Antelope Valley Country Club. And that starts on page 187 of the packet. And this is for a one-time transfer of 450 acre feet of carryover water to the Antelope Valley Country Club to offset their replacement water obligation. And figure 1 shows the locations of these parcels. Van Dam parcels are in orange, and the Country Club parcels are in purple. And all these parcels are on the central Antelope Valley sub-area. Are there any questions on this?
It's a one-time transfer, right?
Correct. One-time transfer.
And again, it's going to be a transfer of 450 acre feet. And our exhibit to the resolution will be amended to show that.
All right. The second
Any discussion
transfer.
on that item? Okay. Go ahead.
No questions? Okay. The second transfer is a permanent transfer of 800 acre feet of production rights from the High Desert Dairy to Craig and Martha Van Dam. And this packet starts on 192. The transfer starts on 192, page 192 of the packet. And High Desert Dairy has 1,817 production rights. And this is after its split of rights that was approved in February. And so the 800 acre feet of that would go to Craig and Martha Van Dam. And the parcels associated with this transfer are shown on page 193 of the packet. And the High Desert Dairy parcels are in light green, and Craig and Martha's parcels are in the orange hashed color. You can see that. And 2 of the parcels are associated with both parties, the High Desert Dairy and Craig Van Dam. And these locations are all associated with production in the past.
Is there any discussion on that item? Craig, have we received communications regarding this item?
Yes. We received on page 196 of your packet a letter purporting to be from legal counsel for High Desert, discussing the authority that High Desert has by virtue of a couple of its members approving the transfer. We have gotten that as the only communication, haven't received any opposition to it. This is not obviously our policy to go into how partnerships are arranged legally. So we haven't studied any operating agreements or whatever, we've assumed that there's the authority to approve the transfer.
Craig, I know that you received some verbal communications or through email from Gary Van Dam, is that correct?
I've received communications. I don't think I've received anything directly from Gary.
And what were those communications?
It's just my understanding that there may be some opposition. But my understanding, I have not received anything in writing challenging the authority of High Desert to make the transfer to Craig and Marta Van Dam.
Okay. Is there any public comment or board comment?
Yeah, this is Adam. So if the Watermaster board approves such a transfer and there is litigation following that, do we get ourselves into this?
Well, the answer to that, Adam, is it's unknown whether they would bring in the Watermaster for that or not. That's why I was interested to see if there was any opposition at the meeting. Right now, we can only act on the representations made by the members that are asking for the transfer, and it appears to be in order. Their transfer has been analyzed by the engineer, and the recommendation is for approval. We haven't been asked to look at operating agreements or review the underlying documents, though the only communication in writing that I've received is what you see on page 196 from legal counsel for High Desert, purporting to set forward the contractual authority that exists to make this transfer. So in the absence of any opposition, the issue is whether we can go forward or not, and I think we can.
Hey, Rob and Craig, this is Derek. I did, at 9 o'clock this morning, I did receive an email from Gary Van Dam, and, that did, state that, he, about this, and that the application is no longer correct, and, I can forward it to staff and the board. I did ask Gary if he was going to be present on the call. He did acknowledge, and I'm assuming I heard his voice that he is. So there was some information flow earlier at 9 a.m. this morning to me and staff house.
I as well had conversations this morning. I spoke with Gary Van Dam, and he said to me that there is something they still need to work out on this transfer. So I think it might be in our best interest, since we don't know exactly everything what this all means, if we were to approve it when there were other things that we are not privy to at this moment in writing, that we could wait on this one until that is worked out.
Hello? Hello?
Yes. Is there?
But I don't know if she dropped off. Whoever was talking dropped off. So,
You didn't hear me?
You dropped off for a minute there.
Kathy, I think Adam said that he did not hear the last part of your statement. Okay. I just muted it again because my dogs were tearing into the neighbor. I was thinking you could hear that. So I was just saying, this was like information just given to me right before this. I didn't know exactly, where it puts us, and like you're saying, Craig, if we can't be assured that it would be somehow come back on the Watermaster, we probably need to take that into consideration.
Well, this is Adam. I think to me that is very concerning. And it's concerning also for future transfer. Craig, I don't know if there is a way for the board to put these items for public comments for like 60 days or 90 days before we can act on it. We need to figure out a different way to get this thing out and make sure that when we do take action on transfers, there wouldn't be somebody challenging the decision at a later date.
There's a few options that the board has. The court or the board can vote to approve the transfer on the basis of the information it has now. It can vote to reject the transfer, or it can vote to defer the decision to a future board meeting, whether that be May. My suggestion is, if you're inclined not to approve the transfer as stated, that you defer it 1 month and that input be requested from the parties, and see if we can sort through what the nature of the dispute is, so that I can give you a better based opinion as to what the legal grounds are for challenging this transfer.
I like
I prefer that it be just 30 days to keep this on a short a leash as possible, so we can find out if there's actually legal grounds for challenging the transfer or not. I have not seen it. I haven't been privy to any writings about what the issues are within the High Desert group.
Is Gary Gary Van Dam, is he on the call? And I know he said he was planning on speaking. Gary, are you on? Okay.
I don't see his name showing up.
Okay. I apologize. He said he was.
All right, I like that idea, Greg. I like the idea of holding for 30 days, and then hopefully getting whatever information we can get a hand on, and then we kind of guide up to what can and cannot be done in the next meeting.
Yeah.
I agree.
Is there anybody on the call from Van Dam or Stevens Dairy that want to talk about this? This is Dennis. Are we going to get a copy of their partnership agreement so it spells it out in this information in 30 days?
That'd be the intention, Dennis, is to get the operating agreement and the information from both sides. What I want to try to avoid is delving into giving a legal opinion about who has what rights under somebody's operating agreement, when it's really an internal to the organization dispute that is impacting the Watermaster. And my inclination is you resolve that dispute however you're going to resolve it, mediation or litigation, and come back to us with with your position as a result of that. Instead of using the Watermaster as a basis to get a legal opinion about who has the rights to get a transfer or not.
Okay.
But I'll try and sort it out in the next 30 days. But, one other option just to keep in mind, I may be recommending next month if there's no resolution of this and this continues to be taking our time, is that you could vote to approve the transfer and make it effective 30 days after the decision, giving any aggrieved party the opportunity to go in and challenge it with Judge Komar. That may be one way to resolve that. I'm looking for putting the onus on the parties that have the dispute and not on the Watermaster to resolve their dispute.
I like that.
I do too.
And Craig, this is Rob. We've talked about it before. These transfer of water are almost, or are like real estate transfers. I mean, and it would seem to me, and we've brought it up before, that at the very least we should be requiring that signatures on all these documents for transfers be notarized. Is that something that we can put in the rules and regulations? And is that something the board would agree to?
I believe that there's some language relating to that in the revised rules and regulations. I may be mistaken on that, Rob. Let me circle back and take a look at that before the final amended version goes out.
Okay, and going further, personally, I would feel a lot more comfortable for our staff that these transfers, that the signatures on them are notarized on all of them. It's not that big of a burden for people to do, and these are major financial deals that are going on.
Yeah.
What's the consensus of the board?
I completely agree. I think we need to be on good standing ground when it comes to the board. And if there is any way, like Greg described it, maybe we approve it and we make it effective 30 days, 60 days, or whatever the case may be, in case somebody wants to challenge this in court. It's just a waste of time for the board and the staff to be mediating disagreement among parties when it comes to transfer.
No, I agree with you, Adam. What's the consensus going forward until our rules and regulations are done that all transfers, signatures will be notarized on the transfers?
I'm all
Derek.
that's for sure. Go ahead, there.
I apologize, Adam. I just have a question, and maybe even not to take it one step farther, but to get ahead of it and proactive instead of reactive. Craig, is it possible, if it is an LLC or some type of corporation, as part of the application process, that there is a documentation shows the operating agreement or the incorporation agreement that, show the authorization of the individual that is the signature, so you have it ahead of time, that we know it's been approved and documented versus proactive like we're dealing with now?
Yeah, we'll look at that, Derek. That's a very good point. I know that they sign under penalty of perjury that they have the authority vested in them to execute the transfer. I believe that's part of the form now. Patty, am I correct on that?
I believe so.
Yeah, but you're talking about another level down, Derek, and I think that's a very good food for thought. We'll consider that when we talk about potential revision of the transfer form.
Thank you.
Okay, Annie, we have one more to go on the transfer. What is the consensus of the board? Are we putting this over for 30 days?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
And-
my suggestion.
And Craig will
Yes.
request Okay. My only concern with Craig requesting the partnership agreement is that we're going to be spending a lot of money having our attorney interpret partnership agreements, and how will that expose us to litigation, and is that the role of our attorney to do that? Shouldn't we put the burden on the people asking for the transfer to do that? Craig, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are the cost of this should be allocated to those that are requiring the legal review.
I agree.
So to me, this is an High Desert's bill. If there's an internal dispute that they don't or are not able to agree about who has the authority to grant the transfer of water rights, if they're going to involve Watermaster General Counsel in some way in discerning what those rights are, my full intention is that those costs get allocated to them for that process.
As part of the application cost.
Is that the consensus of the board?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Right. So long it is clear.
Adam, we need you to speak up more, please.
Oh, I said so long it's clear to the party at the time they apply for the transfer. So it needs to be in the application somewhere or something. Because they don't say, well, I haven't heard about it. And they get a bill for $5,000. I don't know what it is.
And again,
Did you all
Craig, you were going in and out, Adam. I think you're...
I was saying so long it's clear to the party that this cost will be paid by them in the beginning of the process.
Should that be something that you can put into the rules and regulations since we're at this point, Craig?
Well, we can look at that. I mean, right now I have nothing in writing opposing or any legal basis for opposing this transfer application. So that's what I intend to get in the next 30 days. If there's anything in writing or legal challenge or something from Gary Van Dam's legal counsel about what the basis is for this challenge. And absent that, I don't plan on doing any work. I plan on recommending approval of the transfer. It's not like any other one.
Okay. Thank you. Any further? Okay, I think we have a third transfer you were going to discuss, Kate.
We do. So the last transfer is actually a transfer of stored imported water from WDS California 2, which has a large amount of water stored in the Willow Springs water bank. And they want to transfer that to AVEC to kind of move over to their west side water bank. And the advisory committee had a few questions regarding this application. The first question was they wanted to know if there was a storage agreement for these two banks, and the answer to that is we have not yet received any kind of storage agreement information from AVEC from the West Side Water Bank, nor for the Willow Springs Water Bank. And the second question was, how did we know how much water in storage WGS California 2 had in the Willow Springs Water Bank? And I just confirmed that via an email to Willow Springs Water Bank. They didn't object to that amount of water or to the transfer. So I'm just wondering, before I go into the details on this application, if the board wants to discuss this, they feel it should be tabled, or should we just move ahead?
What's your recommendation, Kate?
I know that we we would like storage agreements from all the banks, for each bank. But I feel that this transfer is just kind of moving water from one area, stored water from one area to another, and so I don't think that it's a big deal that we have the approved storage agreements before this occurs.
Are they in different basins though, or sub-areas?
No, they're actually relatively close to each other. So the application starts on page 198 of the packet, and the locations of the banks are shown on page 200 of the packet, and they're both in the West Antelope sub-area, and that figures from our annual report, and it shows the Willow Springs Water Bank, which is a little bit north west of the AVEX West Side Water Bank. So they're in the same area, and I think we feel that the mounding of these banks and the radio flow kind of probably co-mingles with water underground. So it's not like the banks are in opposite ends of the basin.
Dwayne's here from AVEC. Do you have any comments on this, Dwayne?
Yes, this is Dwayne Chisholm, Antelope Valley East Current Water Agency. This is a relatively simple transaction between two groups that have water banks that are essentially adjacent to each other. The water has already been, it's a one-for-one exchange. There's no net loss in water stored to the basin, and this water was always intended to be removed and used within the basin as it would be, whether it's pumped from the Willow Springs Water Bank versus the West Side Water Bank. This transfer was a results of several other transactions that were developed between WSD2 and the AVEC Water Agency. So that would be my input.
This is Dennis. I move we approve the transfer.
Well, I have a question, Dennis, before we do that.
Okay.
This is Adam. Does the Watermaster have record of how much was stored by WDS?
Could you say that, Adam? Could you say that question once more, please?
Do we have record of how much?
Adam, the volume is real low, so it's real hard for all of us to hear.
Really, yeah, I live in a very weird area now. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just speak up as loud as you can.
Okay. What I'm saying, does the Watermaster have record of how much was stored by WDS2?
No, but we know how much water is stored in the Willow Springs Water Bank. And we don't know individual parties and where that water is stored in the Willow Springs Water Bank, who it's allocated to. But I did get confirmation from Willow Springs Water Bank how much WGS2, California 2 had in its bank.
And substantially more than 11,643. I take it.
That's how much they had. Yeah, yes, they had 14,996 acre feet. So another, 3,000 acre feet.
I see. Okay, as long as we have some sort of a paper trail on that, That's what I'm interested in.
And I think Dennis was going to make the motion, and we're looking at resolution number R2011. I believe it's the consensus of the board that we are tabling the High Desert Dairy transfer till our next meeting for Craig to do, or if Craig receives more information, then we will deal with it at that time. So the motion is to approve the transfer request of Craig and Martha Van Dam of 450 acre feet and the WDS California 2 to AVAC of 11,642 acre feet. And for the first one, it was from Craig and Martha Van Dam to Antelope Valley Country Club, and that is the carryover water. So, Dennis, did you understand that was the motion you were making?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a second to the motion to approve the transfers request as I just stated?
Second, Kathy.
I think Derek beat you to it, Kathy.
That's okay.
Okay. Gotta be fair here. Okay, Derek, for the second on that motion, is there any further discussion on the motion?
WDS California 2.
Hi, Andrew.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, there is a typo on the very first page of the section. It says 11,642 acre feet, and that's the motion, the number that you used in the motion, but the actual request in the documentation we submitted and in the report is 11,643 acre feet. So could you just change the motion to 11,643 acre feet instead of 42?
Andrew,
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Thank you, guys. And thank you for considering. I appreciate it.
So there's a typo in Exhibit A, the second one, and it's supposed to be 11,643 acre feet, not 42 acre feet. Dennis, you understand that as part of your motion, it's 1,643. And Derek, you understand you're seconding that motion?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay. So any further discussion or clarification on these transfers from anyone? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call.
Director Atkinson?
Yes.
Director Ricci?
Yes.
Director Urosic?
Yes.
Director McLaren?
Yes.
And Director Paris?
Yes. So the motion carries unanimously to approve Resolution R2011 transfer applications of the Craig and Martha Van Dam transfer to the Antelope Valley Country Club of 450 acre feet and of the WDS California 2 to AVAC of 11,643 acre feet, and the transfer from High Desert Dairy to Craig and Martha Van Dam is tabled till our next meeting. Thank you. Moving on to item 8E, groundwater banking and recovery storage application, Roseman Community Service District. And I believe we have a presentation from Phyllis.
Yes, we do. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
We hear you very well.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to bring back to the board your request to not only consider the Rosamond CSD storage agreement for its approval today, but also to hear some information that you had specifically requested regarding a new constituent of concern and how it might relate to the project. So if I could get the staff's assistance, we'll go to the first slide. And by way of background, I thought I would just quickly summarize what we're doing here. The Rosamond CSD wastewater treatment plant has been rehabilitated and is being rehabilitated. It's in progress to meet regulatory requirements to allow them to percolate wastewater into local ponds, adding to groundwater and storage, and providing them with the opportunity to look at this as banked water. They put application for a storage agreement to the Watermaster in June of last year. The Lahontan Water Board actually approved their waste discharge requirements in July, and then we took a look at their application in August and the materials that they provided to us, which included extensive information that they provided to the Water Board, and produced a letter. In that letter, we found that there was no material injury associated with this project, and we did condition it on the conditions that they adhere to the WDRs, their monitoring and reporting program, and also the rules and regulations which are being followed in your storage agreement. There was a little bit of a delay after that because the legal team needed to finalize the new storage and recovery agreement template. You might recall this was one of the first two that came before the Watermaster Board, and as a result of that, the legal
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. You have not entered any numbers. Please re-enter your meeting ID followed by pound. You have not entered any numbers. Please re-enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue. You are in the meeting now. There are more than 50 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. You have been put on hold by the host. You cannot listen or talk until the host releases the hold. You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing star 6.
Just by way of a comment, notification levels and response levels are non-regulatory actions that are recommended to the California Water Systems by the Water Board. They are not NCLs. They are not. They don't have the detailed analysis and risk assessments that are required to go from a public health goal to an MCL, but they do provide California Water Systems with some guidance on how to deal with the investigation that they have recommended for PFAS. You can see that the notification levels are very new. They were finalized in August of last year, and then the response levels just happened last month. Well, actually 2 months ago now, in February of 2020. They're very low. We're in the part per trillion range now with looking at nanograms per liter. If the detections are above the response levels, a California water system is being asked to take a variety of actions, including removing a well from service, providing treatment for the PFAS, or to notify their customers in writing. It just depends on sort of the risk level, how many wells a system might have, and where they are with respect to the state. The regulatory actions that have been focused on to date have included both federal and California. The two top bullets here on this slide talk about EPA's PFAS response. They have an action plan that they put together in 2019 and updated it just recently this year to look at exposure, toxicity, and risk. The EPA laboratory methods are also very new, relatively new, for looking at PFAS. You can imagine, I'm getting a whole lot of feedback. Maybe someone could mute their line there. The laboratory methods for the two chemicals of concern that have been put forth from EPA are relatively new, November 2018, and then more recently, December 2019. So we have new constituents of concern, thousands of them, and no real regulatory controls yet, but we do have some methods now that we can begin to look for the constituents. I'm sorry, I wanted to mention, I was taking too long on that previous slide. If we could just go back for 1 second. The map I wanted to point out, great, thanks so much. The map there that's on the left is from the California Water Board. They've put together an investigation now. This has been updated just as of last month in the GeoTracker website. The California Water Board has asked airports, landfills, and chrome platers in particular, and about 600 water supply well owners to look for PFAS at these locations. The data are coming in, and as the data are available, they're posted online. And I thought it might be helpful if we look at what's going on specifically within the Antelope Valley. So now we can go to this next slide and focus in a little bit more on what's happening locally. You can see two orange triangles there on your map of your groundwater basin adjudication area. Those represent the Lancaster Class 3 landfill and the Antelope Valley Public Landfill. Those two household waste landfills have been targeted by the regional board as part of their large-scale investigation in California that we just looked at. And with that order, they have asked for these two landfills to sample for PFAS and PFOA at their monitoring wells, at the leachate associated with the landfill, and then, if detected, any water supply wells that might be in the vicinity. So the answers so far, we just have sampling that began November, December for these brand new chemicals using brand new laboratory methods. And it does look like that we have detected low levels of PFAS and PFOA at both facilities, both of the landfill facilities. The concentrations in the groundwater samples and the leachate samples were relatively low. For the groundwater, it was less than the notification level. So again, in the 5 to 6 ppt, parts per trillion range. The water supply wells near Lancaster landfill were also sampled, 2 of them. We don't have those data quite yet, so a lot of information pending. The water board, we've spoken with them. JCAS has been fabulous in providing us with a lot of information and data. I know that he's been working with Rosamond on the issue, and he's also talked with us directly. So we appreciate their openness and their willingness to think about how this project might fit into the investigation locations. The Water Board is considering what the next steps are with respect to California investigations. And if we can go to the next slide, we can focus in a little bit on the Rosamond project. So I mentioned before that they have rehabilitated and in the process of rehabilitating the wastewater treatment process to upgrade it. It's denitrification, and because of these new improvements to the treatment, the regional board has approved new waste discharge requirements to allow the wastewater to be percolated into local ponds. This is new water to the basin. Previously, these ponds were lined, and we were looking at evaporation, so we were losing that water back out of the basin. So this is an opportunity. This is the reason that the storage agreement is in front of the board, is because this is new water into the basin, and it's nice to be able to have a new water source for local recharge that could be recovered. The regional board also required this new monitoring and reporting program that was approved last July. And it's extensive. It's similar to other waste discharge requirements that you see at wastewater treatment facilities. And I've summarized it on this next slide. If we can go to that, we can see a summary of the types of monitoring that are being required. In brief, they're having to monitor their effluent, on-site groundwater, and off-site groundwater, and report that information to the public and to the board quarterly and annually. So for the effluent, we're looking at weekly and bi-monthly sampling for a variety of indicator chemicals, as well as monthly sampling for a larger suite of chemicals. And then annually is really where the very large monitoring program occurs with all VOCs, semi VOCs, general minerals, metals, essentially looking at almost a drinking water program there for looking at the effluent. The on-site groundwater wells consist of a network of 11 wells that are sampled quarterly and every 5 years. So this gives all of us an opportunity to continue to watch and look at the potential impacts to basin groundwater from the project, and certainly the regional board will be doing that as well. They're also, I think this is a very nice feature, that they're also posing off-site groundwater monitoring. And there are 3 wells that are being proposed for the project, and currently we don't quite know what all is being sampled there. The HOT staff is working on the final sampling and analysis plan. So what we have, I think, is a very robust monitoring program set up for the project, and it does not include the PFAS substances, and it possibly is a little premature to do so, is my personal opinion. So I've put some conclusions here and some recommendations. So again, an MCL has not yet been established for any of the PFAS constituents. I know everyone is very familiar with the process of these new constituents of concern when they become identified in as a potential concern, and so everyone is scrambling to make sure that we're doing proper laboratory procedures, that we are looking for them for the very first time in many basins, and trying to better understand what's happening with respect to persistence in the environment, all at the same time that we're trying to actually determine what their toxicity levels really are. That process is still ongoing. The OEHA says that it's very difficult to do risk assessments on these constituents because there's such a wide variety, and we're just now learning enough about them. So we're really at the very early stages, I think, for PFAS investigations, with most of our results unknown. We're not even sure what the results are yet of this very early sort of reconnaissance screening that the regional board has begun across the state. The California water boards certainly have regulatory authority for these investigations, and they can require Rosamond CSD to monitor for PFAS at any time that they choose to do so. The process typically is when there has been a regulatory contaminant level established, because otherwise you're just sort of asking for just information, and you don't quite know what to do with it because you don't really know what the levels are with respect to what actually is going to be regulated. So the current program, as a result of that, has been developed to detect potential impacts from wastewater to groundwater. So we would certainly have the opportunity to see if we had any other impacts associated with the pond percolation. It would also give us an opportunity to sort of trace the groundwater with respect to the pond percolation to help us know in the future sort of what's happening should the PFAS sampling be required. So sort of based on everything that I've put together, and I've considered this pretty carefully, I think we should really go ahead and approve the Rosamond CSD storage agreement with its current monitoring and reporting program. The Water Board has already considered this. The Water Board has looked at the PFAS situation, and they agree that it's too early to say very much. They're continuing to pull data together. It also gives us the opportunity to review groundwater conditions in the meantime, so it's not as if we are completely ignoring the project, nor would we have anyway. And then if the board would like, we can certainly provide updates on request of the Water Board's PFAS investigations. We're getting information, as you saw from some of the previous slides, on a real-time basis. So we updated everything through February and through March with respect to the data available. So that's really what I had put together and what I am recommending. I'm happy to talk about anything that the board would like to talk about with respect to this process or any of the data.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Questions?
Yeah, this is Adam. Phyllis, you said that the wastewater treatment plant was upgraded. What level of treatment the effluent will be?
It's still secondary, but it is denitrified.
And is the denitrification has anything to do with the detection of nitrate in the groundwater basin in some of the wells in that area?
Yes, we don't have the project was not upgraded because there were issues with the groundwater because it was actually problems with respect to some of the ponds starting to leak, and there were some operational issues associated with trying to hold the wastewater for evaporation. So the upgrades were specifically to allow for pond percolation, and that was with respect to rehabilitation.
So, and in your professional opinion, has there been any groundwater basin recharge project using secondary treated recycled water in the entire state of California?
Oh yeah.
Where?
Where? Well, the most recent project that I've worked on, I hate to call them out, the city of Corona, but I do think that there are many examples that we could see. Denitrification, of course, is one of the biggest concerns. But yeah, I think secondary effluent is being used for recharge.
Yes, project in Southern California.
Adam, this is Dwayne Chisholm from Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency. I previously managed for over 15 years a wastewater treatment plant that percolated I can't think right now. The secondary effluent, there was no discharge. It was percolated in the groundwater basin. So yes, I can vouch from my experience that there are folks that do that, and they actually do very well for the groundwater basin.
I'm not aware of any. The Orange County project, as you all know, it is advanced treated recycled water. The Metropolitan Water District regional recycled water, they're working on it right now, is going to be an RO system. These are agencies that have been doing water and groundwater recharge for over 100 years.
And I can tell you, Adam, that the city of Santa Maria has been percolating their secondary treatment effluent for over 35, 40 years.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the city of Santa Maria. What I know is secondary treated recycled water has a lot of pollutants. Nitrate is one of them. Total dissolved solid is one of them. And I know because I've reviewed some of the data in that area in Rosemont, and I know there were exceedance in nitrates, there were exceedance in total dissolved solid. They're not being addressed, the total dissolved solid, they're not even being addressed now. In fact, the report from the Lahontan board says that the Watermaster at one point may need to deal with the total dissolved solids with the Rosemont Community District Services or water districts. In addition to that, we have
you have pharmaceuticals, you have heavy metal. Those are not deniable. These are science. These are facts. All what one has to do just to review the literature. Not the least of them is the PFAS. I was surprised that Fellas minimized its impact. I don't think it is minimum. There are the Santa Clarita Valley Water District has to remove 15 wells because they detected PFAS. They have to send public notification telling their customers that they detected PFAS. Orange County had to take wells out of service because of the PFAS. Recycled water, even when it's tertiary treated, is a PFAS source of contamination. PFAS are called forever contaminants. Las Virgenes Municipal Water District is embarking on advanced treated, meaning reverse osmosis treatment of recycled water because they want to remove the PFAS before they can introduce it into drinking water. So, unless we're going to hide our head in the sand and pretend that it is okay to recharge the groundwater basin with secondary treated water, I can't see any rational individual making a case for that. But let me ask Phyllis another question. Did you see the environmental document that that Rosamond Community Services circulated in public?
Are you talking about the Kennedy Jenks application to the Regional Water Quality Control Board?
No, the environmental document, the CEQA document.
We didn't look at the CEQA document, no.
Do you think that as a responsible body, the Watermaster should have been provided with the CEQA document to comment?
Yeah, I guess I should have asked for it. We did not. We thought that the regional...
You guess you should have...
Well, I guess I didn't understand that it had been circulated.
How can you say you don't understand? There was an approved permit by the Lahontan Board. The Lahontan Board doesn't approve permit if there is no CEQA document approved.
Yeah. So,
Adam,
I'm sorry.
Rob, was your question, I think your question to Phyllis was, had we received the environmental documents at a time when we could have commented? Was that the question?
Absolutely. We are asked to take an action as a responsible body, as an arm of the court. And we were not provided with an environmental document to comment at the time. And I was surprised to hear Phyllis saying that she wasn't sure that there was an environmental document. It's common understanding that when we undertake a project of such as this, there has to be an environmental document. The regional board wouldn't issue a permit without an environmental document.
I guess
so there was an environmental document. It was approved. We've never seen it. We never received even a copy of the draft waste discharge permit that the Lahontan Board approved, even though they claimed that they circulated among the public for comment. And we, being the Watermaster Board, you would think is one of the most important bodies that should have been provided a copy of that report, the Lahontan report, to review. So there is, we're put in a position to approve something that I don't believe should be approved because of the science. But in addition to that, we were not even allowed or given the opportunity to comment on the environmental document, on the Lahontan report for the permit. So I find it very puzzling and very concerning to be asking the board to approve something under those circumstances.
Okay, Aaron, I'll have Phyllis respond. Phyllis?
I'll just say a couple of things. So the first thing is that we certainly looked at the waste discharge requirements and the monitoring and reporting program, and we also worked directly with Jay Cass at the Regional Water Quality Control Board on what was being required and why. I feel like that Jay was quite forthcoming at letting us know that this project was in the works. I think it had been mentioned previously at board meetings. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but certainly.
The first time I remember hearing about it was in November.
I see. At any rate, I certainly think that the waste discharge requirements and the monitoring and reporting program that the regional board has put forth and has approved are reasonable with respect to other small systems that I have seen with respect to pond percolation. I certainly recognize and certainly commend all of the process that Metropolitan Water District and Orange County Water District has gone through. I've worked with Orange County Water District for years. I think they'll be the first to tell you that they have been incredibly proactive at looking for all new constituents of concern, and that sometimes it's very problematic for them because they end up with data that they don't quite know what to do with yet because there isn't probably a regulatory process in place for them. So I am. Those are the things that we.
Let
me, and I'm not.
This is Rob. And let those finish, please, and then I'll call on you.
The last thing I'll just say, Adam, I don't want to minimize PFAS. I'm not trying to do that at all. And please, if you feel like that I did that, I hope that I can convince you otherwise. Anything that's persistent in the environment, any new constituent of concern, is something that's a concern of mine as well, not just for this subbasin, but for the entire state of California. I've just seen every time we have a new constituent of concern that sometimes we get out ahead of ourselves in terms of trying to sort of figure it out. And if we sometimes let the regulatory process sort of move forward, then things are done in a more systematic process. And then the last thing I'll say is this. One of the things that the advisory committee certainly told me loud and clear, and I believe I heard it echoed in at least some level from the board, is that the Watermaster engineer should not try to get in front of the regulatory bodies that have the authority to analyze and approve these projects unless it's incredibly necessary. Everyone's concern was that they've gone through, the applicants go through millions of dollars and a tremendous process in trying to make sure that their projects are notified and approved with respect to all of the regulatory framework that's in place right now. And I think there was a big concern, especially for storage agreements. I got a lot of comments from a variety of parties within this basin that, thank you, Watermaster engineer, for being careful. But in reality, the regulatory agencies that already have the authority to look at these projects and approve them really are the ones that should take the first place, and that it might be, a secondary view for the Watermaster engineer. So I take water quality very seriously. I take protection of this basin very personally, and don't want you to think otherwise. Having said that, I am trying to think about what might make sense to move forward at no risk to the basin when we can continue to monitor and evaluate this project.
Thank you, Philip. Adam?
I appreciate that. No, I was just going to point out to fellas a project that some of you may know, some of you may not. The duck farm. They've been working with the Regional Water Quality Control Board now for 5 years, really, since the signing of the judgment, to put
tertiary recycled water from the sanitation district into the pond, and then give up their groundwater rights in return for that. And the Regional Water Quality Control Board is asking them to put a liner, a impermeable, meaning it doesn't allow the water to infiltrate into the groundwater basin. And the water that, or the recycled water that it's trying to put in the lake is tertiary treated, which is higher than the secondary treated recycled water. And this is going right now. That farm is a bunch of people who are amateurs in hunting ducks, so it's not like they have a lot of money either. So there is a reason why they're not allowing them to put water in the pond in the ponds without a protective layer. Because they don't want that water to go into the groundwater basin. Same thing here in the main sanitation basin. So, and I personally went through the aquifer splitting recovery program where we were trying to put treated ink water into the groundwater basin in an injection well. But we couldn't get a permit for that. It took us 8 years to get an additional permit to put 2,000 acre feet and monitor throughout the entire basin. And the reason why is because it has higher chloride and higher on the THMs in the Adic water that didn't exist in the groundwater basin. And that was in conflict with the basin plan. So, I mean, I appreciate the fact that we're not comparing Rosamond to Metropolitan Water District of County here, but we still need to consider what the ramifications of any action. There may be other solutions, blending recycled water with the state water project water to maybe reduce the impact to the groundwater basin. There are a lot of options that can be done in a sensible way.
Hey, Adam, is there any other discussion? Any board members?
Well, yeah. One more thing, if I may, Mr. Chair. I wanna ask Craig. My reading of the judgment that the Watermaster Board has the responsibility to protect the groundwater basin.
Correct.
Yes, the Regional Water Quality Control Board is the regulator over the groundwater basins in the La Junta regions. But if we disagree with them, we can voice, and this is exactly my point, why we didn't get an opportunity to comment on their draft permit and to comment on the environmental document. Had we been given that opportunity, a lot of these issues may have been resolved at those stages. So, Craig, I heard you saying yes. Am I correct?
Yes. I'm sorry, Adam. I responded to your question probably too precipitously. But yes, you have the duty and obligation to protect the basin. To the extent that involves being subject to regulatory control of the regional board, that's going to be an issue regardless, and we obviously have to listen to the regulatory authorities that are applicable to what the projects are that we're doing. But ultimately, we have the responsibility to the court to protect the basin.
Thank you. And the material injury analysis, the way I understand it in the judgment, not only includes the water supply issues, it includes the degradation of water quality. Am I correct, Craig?
I think that's correct. I'd have to look at the specific wording of the judgment.
Yes, it includes water quality.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. I'm done, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Adam, thank you. Other comments from any board members? Any comments from the public? If everybody's muted, have we muted them or can they unmute themselves?
They can all mute. They can unmute themselves.
Okay. So if any members from the public have a comment, if you can unmute yourselves and let me know if you have a comment. Okay, so we have a recommendation from Phyllis to approve this. We have this before us.
Yes, this is Steve Perez from Roseman.
Hi, Steve.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well. Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody for their presentation and make a couple comments. Number one, in Phyllis's presentation, at one point, she's in regard to the MCL, she mentioned that it may be premature. However, I need to point out to the board that Roseman has been on top of the PFAS issue at the time that we submitted our application to the Watermaster. We knew it existed. We've been educating ourselves on it. We've been to several presentations regarding PFAS, what it was, how it came about. We've hosted a PFAS presentation at our district and invited other water agencies to participate. We have traveled to out of state, in state, trying to find the best mitigation for PFAS. And
my comments, I've had a few conversations with Adam before. I respect Adam completely on his knowledge of water and problems, and I know he sincerely feels this is a major decision on our part, as I do. I've also had discussions with Matt and Wayne, and I have complete respect in Phyllis and her desire to protect our basin. And this is one of the hardest votes that I've been asked to make on the Watermaster board at this point. I have a lot of respect for what Steve said and for the Roseman Community Service District and their desire to protect the basin also. And I want to find a way for us to reach consensus on this, and I'm not sure what that is. I mean, at the very beginning of our discussions about Watermaster Board and when we were in negotiations, I always thought the 5-0 vote would be a difficult hurdle, and in our tenure we have been able to get over that hurdle, I think, every time. So what I'd like to work on, and I want to hear Adam's comments at the end, is to see if there's more information that we could be given to address the concerns that Adam has addressed, and I still think questions in my mind about is this going to be safe for our basin? It's a big decision because it's the first time we're doing it in our basin. I don't have nearly the education on water as the people that I've said I've talked to on this, and I'm still not 100% sure. So that's where I'm at right now. But I want us to get consensus, and I want us to move forward, and I want us to do the right thing. So, Adam, your turn.
I don't know when you left off. Well, first of all, I am all for recharging the groundwater basin. That's why we spend a lot of money in our partners in that Homedale Water District in the city of Homedale to develop the Armagosa Creek Bend, and been supportive of that all along. I have a sense of responsibility as a Watermaster board, as you all do, in protecting the groundwater basin, both quality and material injury in any fashion. This is exactly my point why a project of this nature should have been collaborated from day one. And I think we would have ended up at a point where everybody was supportive of the project. Unless our staff of the Watermaster board or our Watermaster engineer got the environmental document and they didn't tell us about it, I don't remember ever seeing it. I don't ever remember hearing about the project until November. And with all due respect to the process, it sounds like it was going on for a year before that. But we are where we are. And I agree with the chair that we need to build consensus. We need to move forward, and it sounds like everybody is on that boat. My recommendation to the board, if this project to be approved today, is to put some conditions on it, where maybe PFAS be monitored at the effluent and at the monitoring wells when they're monitoring for total dissolved solid and nitrate. I don't want to, add burden to those my community services, but even if it's one sample a year, we just want to know what level of PFAS coming out of the treatment plant, and what level of PFAS is going down into the groundwater basin. And then the board can review this data a year down the road, or 2 years down the road, or 3 years down the road, and assess what, if any, action may be needed at that time. But to have to kind of knowing what they know, to just blindly say, well, this sounds it's all good, and we're just going to move on. I'll find it very difficult to do that.
So the condition you would want on this, if we approve today, is a commitment by Bozeman Community Service District to monitor the PFAS, and as part of the monitoring program that we've already discussed, is that it?
Yes, and then for the board to evaluate, results as they are accumulated and change course or action if needed. We don't want to derail the project, but it sounded to me from what I heard from everybody wants to do the right thing. Everybody wants to protect the groundwater basin. And I think knowing at least the level of PFAS in the secondary treated recycled water, effluent, that goes into the pond, and then at the monitoring well, even if it's every 6 months or so samples, it would give us an idea of what we're looking for and what levels are we seeing.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. Phyllis, is that something, if the Bozeman Community Service District agreed to that, is that something that you think would be workable for, it would be coming to you and then you'd be reporting it to us?
Yes, we'd be glad to report any of the monitoring results that we get from that project.
And Steve, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I too feel that we can move in that direction to get this done. I do want to point out there's all the monitoring wells and all the monitoring requirements that we have to go through. This would just be adding the PFAS issue. So in order to move our project along, because we're in construction, we're in engineering of the other mitigation GAC stuff for the PFAS in the event that it comes down the pike. We don't have a large delay, so I can't see why we couldn't.
Okay, Steve, I thank you for that, and I would imagine we're going to have to do this at some point anyway, so if we make this a condition, it would just start with the monitoring once you start doing the program. That would be the consensus. You would agree with that?
Yes, but we can't start sampling until the plant's completed because we don't have much contamination.
Right, no, I understand. So I think Adam's comment was to start monitoring. Well, let me ask Adam. You have the knowledge. Adam, the monitoring would start when you started banking the water. Is that your thoughts? Or
Yes. Once the treatment plant has been upgraded and the flow started to flow, so to speak, into the pond. So we want to know what the level of PFAS out of the treatment plant, and then the monitoring well, as Mr. Perez indicated, the monitoring wells that they're sampling for nitrate and PBS and other constituents, just do a PFAS on those samples as well when that time comes.
okay. Why don't we go ahead?
Understood.
Okay, Steve. Great. So let's take a little bit of time in making the motion. So the motion would be to approve Resolution R2006 with the condition and consensus by Roseman Community Service District that they will begin monitoring the PFAS, and that would be part of the monitoring program for this, and they would set up a system with our Watermaster engineer to report this to us on some agreed on basis that Roseman Community Service District and Phyllis can agree on. Would that be a motion that we could all agree on?
Right. The only thing I would say, both of the effluent and groundwater, and from the groundwater monitoring wells.
So
The wastewater treatment, effluent.
And Patty, did you get all that we can add to the resolution? Okay. So, is there a motion to approve resolution number R2006, approving the groundwater banking and recovery storage application for Roseman Community Services District, with the condition that Roseman Community Service District will monitor PFAS along with everything else they've been required to monitor, both at the effluent and what's the other part of that, Adam?
Monitoring well.
Monitoring.
The groundwater, basically.
Okay. That is the motion. Is there, and who would like to make that motion? Adam?
Yeah, I make that motion that you just read.
This is Dennis. I'll second that. Is there a second to that motion?
Dennis.
Dennis? Great.
Yes.
And Steve, before we do our roll call vote, do we have your agreement on that?
Absolutely, and if Phyllis can let me know of those conditions after writing, I'd appreciate it, and I can have a discussion of understanding with her.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Okay. Is there any further discussion from any of the board or from any of the public on this motion?
This is Derek. I just have a question. I want to make sure I fully understand that the Wahatan Regulatory Agency has this monitoring and management as part of the process with Roseman already. So this information is being gathered and being reported to them. Is that correct or not correct?
Phyllis?
So I'm not 100% sure I understand your question, so let me try to restate what I know. The monitoring and reporting program, which does not currently include PFAS, has already been approved. It was approved in July. I think there are some additional details being worked out on sampling and analysis. So from this motion and from hearing Rosamond's agreement, it seems as if PFAS would simply be added to the appropriate portion of the monitoring program for effluent and for groundwater monitoring.
So let me then thank you for, and that was what I was trying to ask, so thank you, Phyllis. So let me just ask this question. So we're taking a position of requiring additional documentation and information that the state regulatory agency is not asking for, nor requiring Rosamond to do. Is there any, and I know Rosamond is willing and to do that, is there any legality that we are overstepping our bounds, that we are taking any position that could create us being sued for by, trying to go beyond what the state is requiring?
And I think that's a great question.
There's always risk of getting sideways to the regulatory authority that has jurisdiction over that constituent, Derek. There's always that risk, but this is by a common agreement to monitor for the constituent and to report the data back to the board. So I don't see the basis for discernible damage occurring at this point. If Rosamond was required to involve itself in remediation that's not required by the regional board, we may have a different issue at that point.
Okay, so let me ask this question to you, Craig. If we're asking for this to be part of it, and I'm assuming as a board, if this comes up, we're going to take some type of action, is that inevitable?
Well, it's certainly a bridge to be crossed when we get to it, whether the board has jurisdiction to require remediation of a constituent that doesn't have an MCL or a technical response limit. But at this point, we're just talking about monitoring for a constituent that is of concern, is on everybody's radar, and is agreed to by Rosamond as part of the process of getting their storage agreement approved.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Craig. Any other discussion on this motion from any board members or the public? Seeing no further discussion, I will ask for a roll call vote. Patty?
Director Atkinson?
Yes.
Director Ricci?
Yes.
Director Urosic?
Yes.
Director McLaren?
Yes.
Director Paris?
Yes. Motion's passed unanimously. Thank you, board, for the hard work on this. Thank you, Phyllis, for your hard work on this. And Steve, thank you for all your input. We couldn't have done it without input.
Thank you all, and thank you.
Okay, we're on item F, consideration possible action on proposals to provide audit services. That's going to be a staff report. Sure. That'll be Patty.
Okay. Okay, we've included a memo in your packet. We put out the audit services in an RFP. We contacted a number of accounting firms. We received three proposals back. One from Brown Armstrong Certified Public Accountants, I think it's for DEC, from Brown LLP, Rogers, Anderson, Loney, and Scott. We read through the proposals, and we're going to recommend the second one for DEC and Brown. They came in at a proposal of $6,900, and they also gave us a proposal for 3 years with an option for 2 additional years. We like this idea because it does help us with our budget. Now, if you remember in our proposed budget, we only have $5,000 for the audit, and this is substantially more. But after reviewing the administrative budget, we figure we can probably just go ahead and move a couple $1,000s over to the audit budget to cover those expenses. This is a requirement of the judgment and of the annual report. So we'd like to get this processed and get started with our audit so that we can have it to Kate for the annual report as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you, Patty. Good presentation. Any discussion? Any questions of Patty? So you're requesting action and a motion to approve the PDAC and Brown LLP
Yes, please.
at the 6,900. And would this motion include taking them up on the 3-year option at this point?
Yes, and moving the money from admin to the audit in the budget.
So, at this point, we need a motion to approve hiring PDAC and Brown LLP. First year being 6,900, and our budget is 5,000. We'd move funds around from other administrative duties to do that, so that'd be part of the motion. And then we would approve this for, it'd be actually 4 years, right? 3 additional years.
It's for 3 years with an option of 2 additional years.
With the 2 additional items.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this would be 3 years with the option to do 2 additional years, and in your packet at page 240 is what costs would be each additional year. There's this discussion. Okay, seeing no discussion, is there a motion?
The two additional years, are they going to be done a year at a time or 2 years?
So the way this looks, Adam, it would be 6,900 for the first year. We're approving 3 years at this time. The next cost would be 7,030 and then 7,160. And then we would have the option to go on for 2 additional years, and the cost on the 4th year then would be 7,290, and the 5th year would be 7,420. And I would imagine when we took up the option, then we would have an option to extend that out. But that's not part of the motion at this time. Okay, if there's no more discussion, can I have a motion to approve PDAC and Brown LLP to do our audit at the cost specified on page 240 for 3 years, and with the understanding that this year we're going to be about $1,900 short, and we'll move administrative fees or funds around to take up that shortfall. Do I have a motion to approve this as stated?
Dennis, I'll make that.
Dennis has made the motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Second by Adam.
Okay, seconded by Adam. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we will proceed with a roll call vote.
Director Atkinson?
Yes.
Director Ricky?
Yes.
Director Urosic?
Yes.
Director McLaren? Yes. And Director Paris?
Yes. Now we're on the administrator's report. Any report, Peter?
I have nothing additional to report, but I want to check with Patty and Angel.
I think the only thing that we'd like to just let you guys know is that we are hoping to have some small pumper invoices processed and out in the mail hopefully by May 15th. That's our goal.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
I see.
We'll move on to item 10, Watermaster Engineers Report. Phyllis or Kate?
Yes, thank you. I would like to report on the annual report schedule. I should have done a slide, and I regret I didn't do that. So everybody just grab a pencil and paper and write down some dates. So at this point, these are drafts, but we're hoping to have a draft annual report available for posting on June 3rd, asking for comments back on June 17th. We'll take your comments, revise those, and hopefully post a revised draft by July 1st, asking comments back for that on July 15th. That sets us up nicely, I think, for a public hearing in July on the 22nd, the date of the board meeting, and pending any additional comments that we get on July the 22nd in the public hearing, we will make the final available online and providing to Craig by the 29th in time for the August 1st deadline, and we will also be filing the SGMA reporting requirement, which we always do with the annual report as well. Both of those are due. The annual report is due to the court on August 1st, as is the SGMA report. That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Bill, and thank you, Kate. And now we're on General Counsel's report. Craig?
Yes, a couple of items just to update on Phelan and their appeals. As you know, Phelan's initiated review with the court on 2 or 3 occasions, had been unsuccessful, brought an appeal at the beginning of this year, which was ultimately denied by the Court of Appeal, relating to their duty to pay replacement water assessment, not their general appeal of the judgment, which still is yet to be determined. But their appeal of any duty to pay water replacement water assessment has been denied by Judge Komar and is now affirmed by the Court of Appeal that their special writ proceeding was denied at the end of March. The time to review that from Phelan, from counsel for Phelan, asking to discuss what their options are. I know there's been some discussion about whether transfer water from another party to the judgment is available to Phelan in order to meet their past replacement water assessment. I told counsel that the board needed a written proposal from them. I didn't want to be exchanging oral communications with Phelan. We need something in writing about what they're willing to do and what their proposal is to meet replacement water assessment, including ability to pay the replacement water assessment and their fees and costs and delinquent interest that has accumulated on their debt since they've refused to be paying any replacement water assessment now for over 2 years. So the process is now the issues relating to the replacement water assessment are settled. It's settled in that there's no further appeal route available to Phelan for the 2016, 2017, 2018 replacement water assessment, and we need to move forward on how they're going to pay the fees and costs and delinquent interest that is accrued pursuant to their failure to pay replacement water assessment the past few years. So the way it is left with Phelan is they are doing a letter to me about what they see as their options to bring them the Watermaster whole. I emphasize to them that in order to be taken seriously, they must address the fees and costs and delinquent interest that has been accruing on their debt, and I expect to get that. And then advise the board about whether there's a proposal that the board should vote on or not, and get direction from the board about pursuing fees and costs and delinquent interest, which I believe I already have the authority of the board to pursue. But right now it's in a posture where I want Phelan to tell us, tell the Watermaster, what their proposal is, and we can then discuss that with the board and potentially get to resolution. That's all that's occurred with Phelan. Just a reminder, the replacement water assessment is over 1,300 acre feet total for 2016, 2017, 2018. And it's over $1 million in costs and fees, replacement water assessment. Any questions about Phelan? and how we should proceed with them. I believe my charge is clear, is that the board wants to see a serious addressing of the costs that have been incurred over the few years of litigation, uniquely with Phelan for almost 2 years, and the court appearances and appellate work that's gone into to getting us to the point now where they need to pay those fees and costs and give us a proposal for how they plan to meet replacement water assessment. Any questions?
This is Dennis. I prefer cash versus an exchange.
Understood. That's the problem with the transfer, is the judgment seems to be pretty clear that they are required to pay PAY, replacement water assessment, and the issues that come with transfer from another party in the basin when Phelan exports that water outside of the basin and there's no return flow advantage to the basin. So there's real concerns about using a transfer to accomplish that. But they may have some other idea of getting water imported from outside the basin to meet their obligation. I'll keep the board updated on this as we go, and expect to have more news at the May meeting.
Thank you, Craig. And just confirming, they still have a appeal pending on the entire judgment, correct?
Yes, correct. Correct. SCI is just a very brief update. That's Joshua Memorial Park. They intervened in the judgment to get a production right, and the court required the parties to, including a number of parties, including the Watermaster, to meet and confer about a discovery schedule and whether SCI can voluntarily produce information backing up what their claimed production right of 122 acre feet is. Currently, there is a status conference set in May with Judge Komar to discuss whether the documentation produced by SCI is adequate or not. We'll see. Nothing's been produced so far, and we're have the status conference in May, which could be continued if there's not adequate documentation produced before that point. Those are the two items of update for my report.
Thank you, Craig. Moving on to item 12, board members' requests for future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items? I'm going to request one so that we can have a full discussion on it. Again, on these transfer requests, I feel strongly that they should require notarized signatures, and I'd like to put that on the agenda to get consensus of the board to include that in our rules and regulations, and also have staff prepare the necessary paperwork to start implementing that process. And my feeling going forward is I do not want to approve transfer requests without having notarized signatures on them.
Okay.
So that will be on the agenda for next time. Any other agenda items?
The rules and regulations, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So I said we would have the rules and regs to vote on. Right?
We have little Craig for voting on also.
Yeah, and hopefully Craig has heard this loud and clear that this should be put into the rules and regulations.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
I want to thank the board for the great job you did in conducting your first virtual meeting, and for the public for being part of this and working with us on this. And I know these are difficult times for all of us, but we need to continue doing the public's work, and this is the best way we can do it. And my final comment is, please, everybody, be safe, and the meeting is adjourned.
And I want to,
Thank you.
before you adjourn, I wanted to thank the staff for shooting at the meeting as well.
I'm sorry, Adam. You guys speak
But
up.
I want to thank the staff of the Watermaster.
No, absolutely.
For setting
Started and, you know, recognize that the staff has done a tremendous job keeping everything running.
Thank
during
you,
these
Patty.
times.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it, you guys.
Well, we really miss Matt.
Yeah, we all do.
We're hanging on by a shoestring.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Everyone be safe.